And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. And my name is Phil Thompson, and the other guy is
Dillon Burroughs. Great to be with you today.
Hey, Dillon. It's good to be with you. Steve Lacy is our usual partner in crime, and Steve is out of the office right now. So we're just going to move on without him. And we've got Dillon with us. Dillon actually is part of the streamingchurch.tv team here. And if you haven't, Dillon's been on here before, but if you haven't heard from Dillon, he's been around doing ministry for a long time. He's really young, but he started like, when do you start? Like when you're 8 years old or something? Because you got a lot of ministry experience.
That's right. No, well, in college, I was involved in college ministry, and that became my passion and calling, and I've done that ever since. So it's been a lifetime of helping people in different forms of ministry, and now today helping churches with live streaming. So excited about our topic today, the ministry of live streaming, helping churches and ministries make a greater impact in this new area of technology.
Yeah, that's right. And it is a new area of technology, even though it's been around now for a number of years, but people are now just starting to get it. And one of the points you make in this article, and I think this is going to be available on our blog. We have a blog that's called newmediaministries.tv. And so the notes, the detailed notes, if they're not on there yet, they will be in that blog. But you make an interesting point about how, and I run across this all the time because part of my job here is tech support. But I run across a lot of churches that, are streaming, but they kind of just see it as, it's technology we need to do. Yeah, we should be doing technology, so we're doing this as technology. But you make an interesting point. Tell us a little bit about the different perspective that you have on this.
Right. Well, the idea is that most people see live streaming as a technology, just like you have a computer, you have a camera. Live streaming is one of those tools. But if you think about it another way, it's also a ministry as it by itself. I mean, just like you have a women's ministry, you have an after-school club for students, live streaming lets you have the opportunity to serve a special group of people and impact lives in a unique way. And that's what we want to talk about. We have 4 ways we're going to talk about today. And let's get started. The first one here is this idea of serving a new audience. Just like other church ministries serve specific groups of people, whether it's a men's ministry or a children's ministry, live streaming reaches a unique segment of individuals. Let's talk a little bit, in your experience, Phil, some of the different types of people who will be involved in live streaming ministry as far as the end user perspective. Who are some of the groups that you commonly see use live streaming as the end user?
Well, I mean, obviously you have people that can't go to church. They either have some health issues. I think we've referred to them as shut-ins. I don't like that term shut-ins, but we do refer to them as that. And we obviously have a lot of people that view live streaming, but they're not the only group. And a lot of times when I'm talking to churches that are interested in streaming, that's the first thing they think of. Well, I want to stream some of my shut-ins, but there's much more to that. I mean, there's actually people, besides the fact that you've got people doing vacations and doing some other things like that, which obviously love the fact that you stream when they're on vacation. They don't miss a service. They don't miss any archives like that. You've also got people that are looking to go to a church in their area, and they're going to visit your website. And if they can see a live stream, it really helps them make a decision on if they want to attend that church.
Right. And in addition to that, there are groups of people I think of like military personnel from your church. They grew up in your church. They've gone into the military. They're in service or on base somewhere. Sunday comes around, or even sometime during the week, they want to go back and watch the service when they are available to watch it. And when you have that live stream and then that on-demand video, that makes a big connection with those who are serving overseas. And of course, those who are outside your area who would like to join you in worship. I have a friend of mine I went to college with, and he ended up marrying a woman from Sweden. He's living in Sweden now, and he looks around. The churches just have not been a good fit in the small town area where he is. So a lot of his ministry content is stuff like this, live streaming of churches, on-demand services. And so those things become very important for people who have moved to other parts of the world or who live in other parts of the world who don't have those kind of ministry opportunities.
Yeah, you make a good point. And I remember when we helped start a church in a little town in Kansas called Junction City, Kansas, which was right next door to Fort Riley, the Army base, which is kind of reason Junction City kind of existed. And we would have people come to our churches, and then they would be deployed, or they would be shipped off to a different base. And back then, I didn't do streaming video because it was the dark ages. We won't get into my age, but we obviously had audio, and we had our audio online. And I had lots of people, a number of people, families and stuff, say, you know what, I miss Legacy Community Church, but I'm glad you're online, and I'm glad we can listen to the audio. And of course, now you have, as we're talking about here, streaming video. So you make a really good point. And again, emphasizing what we just started with, and that is, this is more than technology. These are people. These are people. These are individuals. And, I talk to people about growing their church a lot. And I always say, you grow your church one person, one family at a time.
Yes.
And so when you're dealing with people that are watching your streaming video, I mean, they're very important people. You want them to connect with you. You want to help them. You want to be able to minister to them. You want to make their life better, because their life is valuable. And of course, they can reach other people and connect with other people. So anyhow, I'm rambling on. So yeah, you're serving an audience here, a new audience that is very important, and you've got to see it in more than just technology. You got to see these are living, breathing souls that are looking for help, looking for answers, and looking to share.
Yes, and that's what it comes down to. So we reach new people doing this, but live streaming is also ministry in the sense that it amplifies your current outreach. And let me share just an example of that. I mean, there are people who come to your church who want to share your ministry with others, but instead of giving out a little booklet, you have an opportunity. If you stream your service, or you have your service on demand, your videos can be spread by members to their friends and families worldwide. Back in the Christmas season, I got to speak at a church nearby in my own town, and there were only about 100 people in attendance, and it was a good service. I thought it went well, but a little discouraged that there weren't more people to hear, but I had an opportunity to prepare. But later that day, I shared the message I gave through social media, because they had recorded it and broadcasted it out. And I looked back a week later, and I found it had been viewed over 4,000 times. Yeah. So here we have a church service with 100 people, but a message that was viewed 4,000 times in a week. So you find out your message has much greater impact after it's preached sometimes, or your service even, because somebody recorded the content and shared it as part of their ministry. So I want to encourage people that every sermon and every service is like a little missionary you send out into the world to spread the light of Jesus. You never know who you're going to reach, but when you do that and you follow that calling God's given you, you know that lives are being changed.
Yeah, that's right. I remember years ago, and this is probably a little bit off the subject a little bit, and maybe a little bit on the weird side, but I remember when I first got into broadcasting, this was in the late 70s, and my dad was still alive at the time, and he was really proud of me for getting in the radio, and he goes, son, you just never know when you're those signals, those radio waves are going out, you just never know who's going to hear it. And where it's going to go and all that. And of course, this was an AM radio station that didn't have much of a reach. And I think he was talking a little bit more about who knows what's out there, in the great beyond. Maybe people hear it. When you said that, it just made me think about my father and the things he said. But it still applies to what you're talking about. The video goes out there, the audio goes out there. And with the miracle of the internet, people all over the world can have an opportunity to hear something that could really enrich and change their lives.
Oh, right. And that's the amazing thing about the information age that we live in today, is that before you would spend more money on one radio station in one hometown than it costs now to stream worldwide to anyone with an internet connection. Yeah. Half the people on the planet or more now have internet capabilities. And so you have that opportunity that never existed before to build a legacy and pour into people in ways that we'll only know about in heaven. So that's a great example. So we got a couple more here, though. I want to talk about the third one, is this idea of building a history of God at work. I think about past generations. Like, I grew up in a church where they had their 125th anniversary as a congregation, and they had the scrapbook they put together, and my mom did an article for it, the whole history of the church and its location and its founding and all these milestones. And now I think about, what is the equivalent today of something like that? And I look at a website or the social media of a church, and you look at the sermons that go back 2, 3, 4, 5 years or more in some cases now, and look at what God has done and changing the lives of people in that congregation. And now you don't just go back and look at notes from an old bulletin. You can go back and watch the entire service of when a person was saved or when a particular pastor came on board as a new staff member. There are all these things that we record now that have never been available at this level. And so we're building a history of God at work in a special way by live streaming and then chronicling that information online.
Yeah, again, that's a really good perspective, because you think of history. Well, it's in books, or it's in these old pictures, But you make a really good point. I mean, it's you have history in your video archives and your audio archives, and again, it's something that can enrich people's lives. That's a really good point. I like that idea. Building a history of God at work. I like that.
Yeah, well, it's a special thing. I think even, it's not that long ago from some perspectives when 9/11 happened, 2001. Yeah. And when people go back and find that information, more often it's looking on YouTube or looking on Google and pulling up the pictures and the videos from what happened during that time. Right. Well, the same happens in your church history now to a lesser degree. If somebody wants to go back and see what happened 3 years ago on Easter, well, it's there. If somebody wants to see that youth Sunday where their kids spoke or sang a song, or that Sunday when someone was baptized, all that can be available now. It just takes a little bit of preparation on the work of those involved in this live streaming ministry to do something that not only makes a difference here and now, but for years to come in the future.
Yeah. Again, that's a good point. I can remember something a number of years ago. I think it was about maybe 9 or 10 years ago. I was a campus pastor for the church that actually Steve Lacy, our founder, goes to, and I was a part of that on staff years ago and all that. But I was we were doing an Easter service on this other campus. It's one church, but we had this other campus, and it was a smaller campus, about maybe 100 people would get in the room. There was a little coffee shop deal, and my worship leader at that campus, I'm trying to think. I think we had 2 services maybe, and so we had one service, and then there was a break between services, and so he went off to his old church for something. It wasn't that far away, but he drove off. He took somebody else from the worship team with him, and they got stuck in traffic, and they couldn't get back in time. And so it's time to do our Easter service, right? And like my worship guy's not there, and I used to do music, but I wasn't prepared to do music. And Steve Lacy, I'll bring Steve into this because again he's our founder. But and the reason I bring that up is because we had this on video. His son, who I think was 15 maybe at the time, and was on the worship team. It was time to start. I said, Chad, you're the guy, lead worship. And he was on the team, but, he wasn't used to leading. And so he got a chance to lead. And it was a little rough, couple songs, but it worked. And I think they have that on video. I know we have pictures of that. And it's something that kind of will live in infamy. It's like, here's where Chad started to lead music, literally thrown into the fire. But it's history, you know what I mean? And it's recorded in history. But I'm getting off track a little bit, but I think you get the point.
Yeah, those are those moments you remember. I mean, whether it's something like that or somebody's baby dedication, those special moments that happen in a church service, we have the opportunity to archive those now and to make them alive again for future generations. So it's exciting to think about the opportunities that exist in that area today.
Yeah, awesome. All right, point number 4, Dillon.
Right. Well, the fourth idea we want to share that's both in the blog post and we'll discuss here is this idea of proclaiming the gospel until Christ returns. Now, if we're familiar with the Bible at all, we know the Great Commission tells us to make disciples of all nations. And a growing number of congregations broadcast the gospel each week through live streaming. And through that, God's word goes forth around the world. And of course, we're never going to know the number of people exactly that are reached through live streaming until we all meet in the future in heaven. But I just want to encourage those who are involved in live streaming or considering it for their church to look at this as a missionary endeavor. When you look at it as more than just technology, but this might be the way that you reach that person in another country that you'll never reach in another way, or that person even in your own town who would not walk into the doors of your church but would watch you from their home in the privacy of their own bedroom and make a decision for Jesus Christ during that time. So again, the bottom line is that this is not just a technology tool, but it's a ministry opportunity. You think about the return on investment for live streaming versus other forms of media ministry, what it costs to put one television program on your local television station, not to mention on a global television station or a radio station or network. And live streaming far and above exceeds the return on investment, both financially and spiritually in many cases. And so we want to look at that as an opportunity for mission work for your church, so we can make a greater impact through what's happening in the doors of your church, outside the doors of your church.
Yeah, that's a good point. And again, we have obviously the Church Solutions podcast. We have people that are involved in ministry. That's why you're listening today, and you are either a pastor or an associate pastor, worship leader, or very much involved in your tech team somehow. I want to just encourage you to kind of buy into this message that Dillon has here, and that's the fact that when you see something as a ministry, it should ignite passion. And I work with people every day, and you do now that you're part of the team here, Dillon. And I can tell when somebody just sees this as just that's some tech, we need to do this because everybody else is doing it. But I can tell the difference when somebody like really embraces it and says this is a great tool. It's going to impact lives, and we've got some great customers that really see it as that, and I can just hear the passion in their voice, and I can see them see what they do and how they use the different features with streaming video. And again, not everybody catches that vision, but I want to encourage you, if you're listening today or watching this video, try to get that vision. It's all about ministry. It's all about people, and then spread that to your tech team and to people involved, because it really will make a difference. So before we wrap up here, I do want to, I always forget to say this, but we'll do a little shameless self-glossing here. We're streamingchurch.tv. That's one of our companies, and we are giving away a Webcaster X2 if you decide you want to stream with our company. So if you need it's a little piece of hardware that is a live encoder that is very handy. There's different live encoders out there that go on computers, vMix and Wirecast and OBS and all that. But Webcaster X2 is a little hardware device that you can plug in, and you can start streaming with. It's very small, very handy. And if you want to stream with us, and you decide, you want to go with us to serve your church, and why wouldn't you, right? But we'll give you that Webcaster. So it's just a little offer we have here, and it will make your life a little easier. And if you've never done streaming video, Dillon and myself and Steve and others here will be glad to help you every step of the way to get involved in streaming and start using this technology that's more than technology, but a ministry to really reach people. So did I say that right, Dillon?
Yeah.
The Webcaster, I think, is a nice little tool.
Yeah, it's a good mention that. For people who may not be familiar with what that is, if you're familiar with Roku and the little box you connect with your TV, it's kind of like that size. And so if you have a camera at your church, you have the camera and you have the box, and it goes straight to your live stream on the internet. Right. So you can bypass having to get the camera. You could bypass having to use a separate computer with an encoding software program and go straight to live streaming that way. So it's a good advantage if you don't want to worry about some of the equipment and technical aspects. So I encourage you from that standpoint. So
you don't need video capture device. You don't need that. And you could even, if you got a video switcher, you can plug your video switcher into it too. So,
that's right. You can do it that way as well.
Lots of different things. So that's a great little tool. And I'm sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was going to encourage those who are listening real quick. If you're not a pastor, not a media pastor at your church, I read an interesting article recently that talked about how geeks now rule the world. And I thought, well, this is kind of rude at first, that title, but when you read it, it made sense, because in past generations, it was always the athlete or the celebrity that was running the forefront of culture, the musician or something like that. And increasingly, it's the coder, the programmer, the tech guy who's behind the scenes that nobody notices, who's really pushing the buttons and making things happen in our culture today. Well, from a church standpoint, you really have the opportunity to do the same thing. You might not be the guy who gets up and preaches on Sunday. You may never play a musical instrument. You may never be that guy or that girl. But if you can help get live streaming and video technology set up in your church, you're going to have an impact that is far beyond the average impact a person has in a local church. So don't underestimate your impact, is what I would say. So if you haven't done it yet, I do want to encourage you to go over to streamingchurch.tv and consider signing up for one of our free trials. You have 1 month to try it out for free. There's no reason not to give it a shot and make sure it's going to be a good fit for your church. So at least do that much. And if we can help you out with any questions along the way, please let us know and we'll be glad to assist.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, sounds good. Okay. Well, I think we're done with this episode. I think this is episode number 5,658. I think I don't do episodes. I mean, I guess I could count them all. We've been doing this for a few years. Right. I know a lot of podcasts do. This is episode 69 of 58.5 or whatever. I was like, what? But we just don't do that. But we probably should. But maybe we'll do that in 2020. I don't know. But anyhow, yeah. So hey, if you have any questions, some feedback on what we're talking about here, we'd love to get your constructive criticism. Just send us an email, support@streamingchurch.tv, and we'll be happy to respond and give you some feedback. And so there you have it. So Dillon, thanks for your input today. We sure appreciate that.
Yeah, it's great being with you and talking about live streaming as a ministry, and look forward to talking again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the notes for this will be on newmediaministries.tv. At least we hope it will be. It will be. We'll have it on there. Newmediaministries.tv. You can go there. So, all right, folks. Well, look, we will let you go. Hope everybody had a great Easter, and the summer's coming up, but we have some ideas that we will share with you for the summer, the next time that we talk. And with that in mind, Dillon, thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Phil. Talk to you later. Bye.
All right, folks, and thank you for listening to the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson. Steve Lacy will be back with us again next time. And until then, have yourself a great day. Take care. We'll see you next time.